everyone, welcome to our channel, Rebecca, Stu, and the Crew. I'm Rebecca, and today we have some DIY home decor ideas for y'all. So let's go over the supplies for the project. For our first part of the first project, we'll do the supplies a little bit separate. We're going to be using these 2 wood plaques, also the scrapbooking ribbon from Dollar Tree. It is the faux birchwood ribbon. We're going to use a razor blade, some scissors. We're also going to need a sponge and a paintbrush. And then I'm going to use some stain. Any stain or paint will do. Also some gloves to protect your hands, Mod Podge, and a sponge brush. So let's get crafty. So for the first thing we're going to do is just remove this hanger. We're not going to need it. We're actually turning this sign the opposite direction. So the first thing I want to do is I want to go along the border here with the stain. I'm actually using a water-based stain that looks like scorched wood when you're finished. And it's dried, so it looks pretty dark here when I'm first putting it on. I actually got a quart of this at Walmart for like $3 on clearance recently, and I really like to use it in crafting. It looks really pretty when it dries. It dries to like a dark gray, and it's got some variation in the color. So then I wanted to leave that border between the middle and the frame along the outside. I thought it looked really pretty, so that's why I'm using the paintbrush here along the edge and filling it in with the stain, and then I went over the rest of it with the sponge. But unfortunately, as it dries, because it does turn into a lighter gray color, I was able to see the wording that is etched into the plaque. I was hoping it wouldn't be so deep that I wouldn't be able to see it with the darker color, but you were still able to see it. So I tried to change it up a little bit. I used a dry paintbrush with some white paint. I went in with a little bit of black paint as well to try to cover it, and that just did not work, which is why we're using this birchwood ribbon. I like to use it. I've used it in several other projects to give this really pretty birch would look to some of my projects. So it's really easy. It's a nice wide ribbon. It's like 3.5 inches, I think. And so it covers quite well with just 2 strips. So we're just going to cover the base with the Mod Podge and lay down our birchwood ribbon, just overlapping the 2 pieces. And then take your finger and really brush up against that lip where the edge of the plaque is at, and you'll be able to get a nice view of where the edges are so you can cut with your razor blade. And that's what we're doing here. We're just slowly working our way around the border so that we get a nice tight fit with that ribbon up into the edges, and it looks like it's always been there and not like we put it there. So it's completely covered. So unfortunately we don't see that little bit of the wood grain around the border, but it still looks nice when it's finished. I actually really liked it this way, so I wasn't too disappointed that I had to change gears there a little bit. So then for the supplies for the second part, we'll need this white faux leather from Dollar Tree, 2 of their wood pencil cups, some white thread or yarn. Also, we're going to be using a hot glue gun and some scissors. We'll need a ruler, a paper hole punch, and one of these roller cutters. We're also going to use the stain again, the sponge, and some rubber gloves. And then we'll need a lighter for the end of our ribbon. And the first thing I do is I go back in with that same color stain that I used for the background. We're using this for the pencil cups. So as you can see, I did the top edge. I do the bottom because if you hang these, you're going to be able to see the bottom. And then I did along the edge. You don't have to do the inside. You will not be able to see it once you're finished. But I know this looks really dark right now, but it's going to get a lot lighter as it dries. So we let these dry for about 30 minutes. And then we go in with our faux leather. And I'm just measuring here to see what size I want to make this. I still want to be able to see some of the black at the top and the bottom, so I don't want to completely cover it with the leather. So I ended up cutting 2 pieces that were 2.5 by 9 inches. Which is right here. I'm just doing a lot of measuring and drawing my lines to make sure that I have 2 pieces that are exactly the same size. Then we'll take the ruler as our straight edge, and we are going to use that rotary cutter which I just love. Make sure you protect your table underneath. I just have an old canvas underneath that I use for like painting and things so I don't destroy the tables. You're just going to roll that roller cutter and it cuts right through that faux leather. And then you can line up the two pieces just to make sure you have them exactly the same size and use the first one as your template. And then again, we're just going to cut this with the rotary cutter. Now, this was still a little bit too long. I ended up getting to the 2.5 by 9 inches, but I had to kind of work it out. So if you're not using one of these pencil cups, you might need to do this step, which is rolling the faux leather around the cup and then get, kind of right where it overlaps, mark that line, and then you can cut off the excess. So I want this just a little bit shorter than the actual cup. I don't actually want this to meet perfectly in the middle. I want a little bit of a space because we are going to lace this leather up to give it a little bit more of an intricate design. And I saw this idea at, I believe it was Michael's. They had these really pretty flower pots that had some leather on them, and they actually had them laced up the side. And you could hang them. I thought they were really pretty, so that's where I got the idea. And I was really happy that the hole punch actually worked to punch through the faux leather, because I really wasn't sure if I was going to be able to get through there or if I was going to have to cut like little X's with a razor blade in the faux leather, but it went right through. Sometimes it didn't go all the way through and I'd have to pull the little circles off because the threads didn't want to go all the way through when I cut it, but I ended up being able to get 5 of these holes on each side. And the best way to get it exactly the same on the second piece is just to line it up and draw where your circles go on the leather with a pencil. And then of course, fold your faux leather in half so that you punch both holes at the same time so you get them in the same spot. So now I'm going to put a little dot of hot glue on the back of our cup that's dry, making sure to have it centered. This just helps to hold it in place while we lace it up. So I used this silky white ribbon I got at the Dollar Tree. It's kind of more like the paracord, just a little bit thinner. And I'm just going to lace up the sides here. Once I get it all laced up, then I'll keep working to tighten the thread. I didn't want to pull it too hard because I didn't want to rip through the hole in the leather and then have to cut a new piece. So I just slowly work my way up the cup. And then once I get to the top, I just tie a simple knot. And then to hold that knot in place, I'm actually going to lift it up for just a second and put a small dot of hot glue underneath of it. And then that will help hold it down. I don't want to make a bow or anything like that. I just wanted it to be just like this, no bows. So that helps hold the knot together. And then we'll cut off the excess. And this type of ribbon, if you burn the edges or singe the edges with a lighter, it helps it not to fray. It is plastic kind of in the middle, or the coating, so it does get really hot, so don't touch it with your finger. I just use the end of the lighter to make sure that the flame is out and that I have all the pieces sealed together. I just go over it a few times. And we'll do this exact same process to our second cup. Now we're going to figure out where we want this to be on our background. So I'm actually laying it down where I want it to be and then marking it with a pencil. And then once you figure out your spacing, you want to take the second one and line it up and use your ruler to guide you into making your marks in the same spot. This way we hang them in the same area. We don't want one higher than the other. Then I'm marking just the center. So 3 inches is the middle of this plaque, and that's where I'll put the glue. So the supplies for part 3, we're going to need some Spanish moss, also some floral bouquets. They have these really pretty bouquets at the Dollar Tree, these dog cutting nail clippers, and a pole noodle or just some floral foam. And I'm going to use a pole noodle knife. Also from Dollar Tree, some hot glue and a staple gun, which is optional. So I'm going to lay my cup down next to the pole noodle, and I want it cut a little bit shorter than the actual cup. That way you won't see it from the top. So I left it about a 1/2 inch from the top. I just check to make sure I have the measurement and they fit perfectly in these cups. But just to make sure it stays in place, I'm going to add a little bit of hot glue to the bottom and then add my pool noodle in. And that will help hold that in place as I do the flowers and the Spanish moss. We'll do the same thing to the second one. And now we can start decorating our cups with the Spanish moss now that we have the pool noodles glued down into place. So we're just going to take a little bit of Spanish moss and we're going to kind of roll it in our hands to help get it to connect to itself, kind of like twist it up a little bit. And that seems to help hold it together so you don't make too much of a mess. And then we're going to just glue it to the top of the cup to cover up the pool noodle. And then a little tip, if you use some extra firm hairspray like Aquanet or something cheap from Dollar Tree, but the firm hold, and spray that over the Spanish moss, it really helps to reduce the shedding once you have your craft put together. Usually before you put the flowers in would be the best time to spray it. But we're going to leave that center open so we can get the flowers down inside. We've already marked our background where we're going to put the glue. So I just went along that line that I had marked to make sure that I get both of these glued in the same spot and at the same height. Just make sure that you have your tie that you just did, the lacing in the center. So then we're going to take the back and just add some staples through the back to make sure that cup's on there pretty firm. The glue was doing a good job on its own. I just wanted to make sure that it was going to stay long term because I am going to hang these up. So now taking those dog nail clippers, I love these to cut through flowers and dowel rods. They work great. So you're just going to cut through your flower bouquet. I don't want to completely cut the flowers apart. I just cut as high as I could without them falling apart. I like the way that they're arranged. I wanted to keep them together that way without having to do a lot of work to try to get them back in the same order. That way they both look the same. Once that's done, we're just going to pop those flowers down in the middle. And then I added this rosemary, also from Dollar Tree. They have a couple different ones with different flowers on them, and a peony, which is also from Dollar Tree. I added some glue and staple on the back to hold the twine hanger. And then you can go ahead and hang these up. I just love how these turned out. I'm actually quite pleased with the background. I think it actually worked better than the stain did. So I'm happy with the way that the end result came out. What do you guys think? All right, now for our second project, we are going to go over the supplies first. This one's really easy. We're going to use a piece of canvas, some rub-on transfers from Dollar Tree. You'll need a craft stick or something for the rub-on transfer, some double-sided sticky tape. The Crafter Square brand is fine. You also need some masking tape, scissors, and thumbtacks. And then we're going to use these easel signs. They come in 3 different colors from Dollar Tree. We'll need a ruler, and let's get crafty. So the first thing we're going to do is remove the canvas from the frame. You guys have seen me do this 100 times. Super easy. Just remove the staples off of the back. And then we are going to open up our rub-on transfers and choose the ones that we want to use. I love these large flowers, so I'm going to use both of the large flowers in our craft project today. So I'm just going to cut them free from the backing. And then the one had some bumblebees by it, so I decided to go ahead and cut out some other bumblebees that were on the sheet so I could use that on the other one that didn't have bees with it, just to kind of keep them cohesive. So we're just going to lay our canvas out nice and flat. You want to tape down your rub-on transfer. I didn't do it with the first one. I wish I would have. It didn't turn out as neat as the second one did when I taped it down. But you definitely want to make sure that they're held in place while you do the rubbing on the backing there. And I sped this video up, but I really took my time making sure that I got all of the ink off of the backing. You can see it changing colors as you go over it, but because the canvas isn't completely smooth, it has those little ridges in it. You want to really take your time and go over it a few times to make sure that you get all of that ink off and really get it down into those grooves of the canvas. And it just helps it to look a lot brighter and not so muted. If you don't go completely over it, you won't have very much ink on the canvas. And it's a very simple idea. I'm not really doing anything. I'm not adding any extra color or anything to the canvas. I just really like the simplicity of the black ink on the white background. So that's what we're going to do here again for the second one. And as you can see, this one I'm using little pieces of like masking tape on the edges, and this really helped this one to come out a lot neater than the first one. Not that the first one was bad, I just think it's better if you tape it down. It did help me. I didn't have to worry so much about it sliding. The first one moved a couple times and I was worried it wasn't going to line up quite right. So definitely, if you have some tape, go ahead and tape it down. And then again, take your time going over the rub-on transfer. I think it's sped up, but I think it took like 3.5 to 4 minutes for me to completely go over the whole entire transfer. So that just tells you, how much time it took and, how much detail I was paying attention to, making sure all of the ink was coming off of that background. And you can see the change as you go, so you haven't missed any spots. So now that it's completely done, we're just going to remove that backing, remove our tape. I run my hand over this a few times. It doesn't run, it doesn't smear. You can seal it if you want to. I didn't think it was necessary, so I did not, but you can seal it with Mod Podge if you like. So then I really wasn't sure what size to cut this out to put on the easel, but I kind of cheated. I had these 4x6 canvas boards and I laid them over the easel, and they were the perfect size for what I wanted for the background there. So I just laid them right on top of our rub-on transfer, traced around it, and then was able to cut them out with the scissors and have the exact size that I wanted. So it worked out perfectly. So the measurements here are 4x6, large enough to completely cover the rub-on transfer and be the right size. You still have some of the border on that easel that you're going to put it on. Then I took some double-sided sticky tape from Dollar Tree. This was just to help me be able to attach it to the background without seeing the bubbles of hot glue. So a lot of times if you use hot glue with canvas, it does kind of bubble a little bit, and you can always kind of see where you put it on at least I can. It kind of just draws my eye right to it and drives me crazy. So the double-sided sticky tape worked perfectly. So I just fold the top to find the center, and then I go right in that center board and just kind of line it up best I can, and then stick it to the back with that tape, and it works out perfectly. Then I'm going to take these silver push pins and push them through the canvas and through the board. They're the perfect length that they don't pop through the back. And that is just to help dress up the corners a little bit and to help hold the canvas on long term in case that tape decides not to stick. And of course, we'll do the exact same thing to our second easel. And that is it for today. Very simple, elegant. I love how this turned out. Doesn't really need a lot, just kind of speaks for itself. And sometimes simplicity is best. And those are our projects today. I hope you guys love the ideas that I came up with to share with you using items from the Dollar Tree to craft with. And of course, my cat helped me as always. Thank you guys so much for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and share. And here are some other videos from our channel you might also enjoy. Don't forget to check back on Tuesdays and Fridays to see what's new at the Dollar Tree, and every Thursday for our DIY crafting video. Have a great day, and I'll see you back here tomorrow.